After asking for emails concerning difficult borders, we had a lovely email that included a video from Debbie. Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. If you enjoy our videos, please do subscribe to the channel. Now, in this series, we're doing a selection of borders which you as our viewers are having problems with. So we started off with a hot border. Now we're going on to Debbie. Now she's got a long border. I've taken notes because I had to watch her video and understand what her problems were.
Good morning, Rosie. I thought it was best that I sent a video of the border in question that I would really love some help with. I call it my long border. That's how long it is, and it's made up of various difficulties that I'm finding hard to manage and to actually look decent throughout the year. So as you can see, I'm surrounded by lots of trees, and that causes me problems with planting because of the roots. So there are plants in here that I've managed to fit in, but because of the root system from this tree, I've got lots of blank places, and I like a border that looks full. I also have to contend with rabbits and deer, and that's why you'll see I've had to put netting around a few of my plants. I suppose the autumn's not the best time for me to show you this, but you'll get an idea. The shrubs, more established shrubs that are in the border, have been here since we moved in. We've been here 12 years, and I think they were planted well before that. So this area here is particularly impacted by the roots of the tree, and the planting, I'm not able to plant very deep. I do particularly love hardy geraniums, and I have put some in quite recently. This area here doesn't get much light throughout the day, so it's mainly, I would say, here that I'm working predominantly with shade, with some late sunshine. This is my tree peony that's absolutely beautiful in the summer, so I want to keep that. Heavy clay soil, rabbits, deer, tree roots. I have tried to put some shrubs in to give it some structure, but I don't feel I've got enough structure here, and I certainly don't have enough colour throughout the year. This is an area that we've just put new fencing in, and this is very, very heavy clay. So it's definitely holding moisture in the winter, and it gets very dry in a dry summer. This is a lovely viburnum, the colour's beautiful. And as you can see, as we go up, too many gaps, not much colour, and a lot of things having to be protected from rabbits. That's why I've started to put euphorbias in, as they don't tend to eat those. My geraniums do get picked off when they're new, so this one's covered up. I'm so lucky to have this long border, but it is very, very difficult for me to plan so that it looks nice all year round. This laurel needs to go. I think it must have just shot up from a seedling or something. I don't like laurel, and I don't want it in this bit of the border, which actually gets more sun than the rest. So we start off sunnied out at the top of the border, and then it gets more shady as I work my way down. Lots of work to do on getting the leaves up at the moment, but that's another story. Any help or any further information you'd like, I would be more than happy to share. Thank you so much. Bye.
She has got a southwest facing border, which you'd assume would have a lot of sun on it, but it's got tall trees on either side, a little bit overgrown, and the roots are causing a problem. Then she has rabbits and deer So that's not helpful at all. Some good shrubs start at the top of a border and work all the way down, sort of as you're going down the hill of the garden. Starts sunny and then goes into being quite shady. And so from what she had said and what she was saying about the border, I then have gone back to her and asked her some questions. Now, I'm somebody who likes notes, so I've got the original email, I've re-looked at the video numerous times to have a real idea of what is happening within this border. And the big thing that she says is, I love my garden and I want to persevere with the border, but she has spent a lot of money on plants and realised that she's lost them, and this is disheartening, and I think a lot of people struggle with those sorts of things. So I went back to Deborah and I asked her some basic questions, and those were, do you ever lift any of your existing plants? Are there any bulbs in the shallow soil areas? How often do you mulch, and if so, how much mulch are you putting on there? Do you leave the leaves that are falling off the trees on your borders, or do you clear them away? And as it is heavy clay, what pH is it? Because it can be clay, it can be sand, it can be loam, but it can be either acidic or alkaline, so we do need to know that. And so that was something I also asked. I then got some really good answers back from her regarding all of this, and so from those I have then been able to think about what it is. And she says, I feel as though I've battled with this border for years and wasted so much money on wrong plants. And this is, I'm afraid, this is one of those things where you've got to start thinking about it. Now, I'm going to start in a slightly different order than my questions were, because I decided this was a point that needed to be done. Now, she says she's used Mr. Muck. She didn't know what sort of thickness she put on. And also, due to the size of the border, she used a bit of fresh alpaca waste. So, clay soil, there is an instant thing. As soon as you say clay soil, then it is mulch, 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 and mulch again. You cannot put too much mulch on a clay border. However, it is the type of mulch that you put on it that makes the difference. So when I asked the question about the leaves and whether she was leaving the leaves on the border or whether she was raking them off, that is something that you need to be thinking about. Now, if you don't like the look of the leaves sitting at the front of the border, then by all means, just rake off the front bit, but leave the rest at the back and maybe pile up towards the back of the border with the leaves. The leaves will die down. The leaves will break down naturally through the winter. Worms will come up and they love pulling those leaves whole down into their holes and everything else. And then they break down, and that gives you better drainage within the soil itself. Also, that leaf cover over the top of clay soil actually creates a sort of web of waterproofing, which you may think is a bit strange. But clay soils get very, very sodden and wet through the winter. So if you can leave the leaves there, the rainwater will bounce off and go slightly different places. It means it doesn't get quite so sodden. Also means the leaves will go down. And then as it gets warmer, they also keep the moisture underneath, so they are good to leave. So this idea of tidying up is just not something you should be doing. Allow the leaf litter to stay there and it will go in naturally. Now, the other thing that I've put down in here, what about it? Yes, because obviously when you leave the leaves there and the worms take it down, that means that they are introducing and drawing more organic matter down into the soil to areas that you wouldn't be able to get it. So it is really helping with the structure of the clay soils. The more organic matter, the better. So that is something that I would say. Then with the mulch, yes, by all means, mulch. Now, if you can and you have your own, great. If you can't and you can get hold of some, then you want mulch that is not completely rotted down. This is key with clay soils. It needs material that is just starting to rot to go into it, because that makes it better, and the particulates work harder because that all needs to be broken down. So the actions of it actually breaking down helps the soil, and you get better aeration within the soil. So that is something to be aware of. You're not putting good, well composted compost onto clay soils. You're putting halfway composted. Recently I set up an email newsletter, and if you want to sign up, then please click in the comments link below or scan the QR code on the screen now. If you sign up, you get an exclusive video. This is a video of me explaining colour combinations and plant combinations in real gardens. So the other thing that was quite important with this clay soil was understanding whether it was alkaline or acid. And Debbie had said she'd done a test a few times ago, and she'd found out that it was a pH of 6. So that means it is a weak acid soil. So that's fine. And it also explains why the rhododendrons that she's got in her garden are doing really well. So that is fine. Now we understand that, we can choose, we can sort out plant material that is going to be correct for the soil, for the acidity that she has got, and that will make so much difference in the choices going forward once we've covered this mulching and this leaving the leaves there. And then where do we start? Next on my questions was about splitting, and Debbie says that she's happy to split and move plants, particularly the crocosmia, but she hasn't done a lot, and it takes up a lot of room, but it doesn't get eaten. So the answer to that is we have to utilise the plants that are already doing well and will grow. So for instance, there were some Hemerocallis, and the thing with Hemerocallis is that yes, they can be a nuisance, but if you split them regularly and move them regularly, and once they've got to a point where you've got too many, you get rid of the excess and then just put in a few back again. So that is something that I would always say. If you've got a tricky area and you've got plants that are taking it over, remember that those plants need splitting really regularly. So this is something that I think has happened. You haven't split your plants well. She hasn't got any bulbs, and didn't know about the leaves, so I've explained all about the leaves and everything else. So splitting of the plants, let's get on to that. So you've got some lovely clumps of crocosmia, and those clumps of crocosmia are doing incredibly well. Yes, by all means, lift the whole lot up, split them into decent sized clumps. So looks as though in one place you've got about 3 clumps. Lift all 3 clumps up, divide all of those clumps in individual clumps into 3, put 3 back in the place you just got them from, then go to areas behind your shrubs, somewhere in the back where you are having real difficulty with the other plant material, and put another 3 in there and another 3 in somewhere else. Then that will mean that you've got 3 lots of 3 up the place. If there were more than that, because I might have missed it when I saw the video, then again do exactly the same with those. Don't have too many. I would go maximum of 5 clumps of crocosmia up that long border, but you're going to have to repeat with similar material, because once you start repeating with similar material, then you get bits that are working. You get the things which grow in the really horrible bits of soil, and then you can come back forward. And when you come forward and you start mulching more, you will find you have more space there for slightly more interesting plants, shall we put it that way. So that is one thing I would say from that border. So you need to be thinking of the things that are growing well, but you know you're not over keen on as fillers. They're just going to fill those back spaces for other things to be shown off by. There were some plants at the top end in your sunny area that looked a little bit like Lysimachia. They could be split. They were getting too big, and I think this is where you're losing track of what you need to be doing. So you've got these plants, they're growing well, but you're not thinking every 2 or 3 years I need to lift those, I need to split them, I need to move them and put another patch a little bit further. That way you are not having to buy anything else, you're utilising what you've already got. And I noted down as I was reading through your stuff, where are we? I've got a list here. I noted down plants that I saw that you had got and that I thought you really should be doing something about splitting and increasing the sizes of those clumps by splitting. So not by just allowing one plant to get really big. You need to take a plant that is, say, a foot by a foot or 18 inch by 18, lift it, split it into 3, and then put it out. And then it will take double the amount of space, and then you will have a much better show of that plant. So things I noticed that you'd got, which I think you could lift and split, are some of your hardy geraniums that were doing well. Hylotelephium, so that's your sedums. You've got some lovely pulmonaria there, and you don't necessarily have to have those pulmonaria at the front of the border. And as you were going up the area and you're going from the quite shady right the way up to the top to the sunnier, your pulmonaria were in that middle bit. Well, you can lift some of those and move them down to the bottom area. They'll grow down there perfectly well. But as I say, they don't have to be on the front edge. They can be in the middle. They could be slightly to the back. They can be beside a shrub. They will do really well. So think about splitting those. You've got euphorbias, and you were saying the euphorbias are not being eaten by the wildlife that is coming in. So get some different types of euphorbia. Euphorbia amygdaloides robbii would be brilliant down in the bottom end where it's really shady. You can also get martinii that would go well down there. And those are things that you want to be looking at and putting in. I've said already the crocosmia split. So that is what I would like you to think about. Look at plants you've got in there, making really good clumps at the moment. Lift them, split them, move them in. But do not do it this autumn. Wait until the spring. Wait until we get to maybe March time. Don't worry if your pulmonaria is nearly coming into flower. It will not worry if you go and split it. But they can all be lifted and split and made into 3s or 5s. Yes, because you've got enough space in that border. And then the things that I think you need to be looking out for, especially for the shadier bits, which will work really well for you in the border, are things like lamium for ground cover, ajuga for ground cover, geums. The hardy geums are brilliant. They will love your soil. So look at some of those, some of the taller ones, some of the shorter ones. Bistorta, that used to be Persicaria, so Bistorta, the Amplexicaulis varieties for the back of the border. Now, some of these things you may think of as being thuggy, but I'm afraid you have clay soil, it's going to dry out, it's going to get wet. You've got to use plants that are slightly thuggier. They will give you the bulk of the back of the border so it looks really full, and then put some really lovely hardy geraniums. And by all means, go for it full time on hardy geraniums, because you can find so many different ones. Once you get them started, you will be surprised at how good your borders look. Now, somewhere where it's slightly drier, ferns, they work really well. And then because you're slightly acidic and because it's drier and what have you, because it's clay, Galenia do not tend to get eaten by the animals, and Amsonia certainly doesn't. And then think about some things which are sort of woodland but will seed around. So good old-fashioned honesty. Yeah, so it has a beautiful purple or a white flower in the spring, and then in the autumn you get these lovely seed heads, and you can allow it to seed around. If it's just becoming a nuisance, you just pull it out, and that is the best way to go about trying to get things to fill up in your difficult areas. So we've covered that you've got plant material there in the border that you can split, and remember to split regularly. Put in a nice clump of it. So if it was taking up this amount of space, once you've divided it up into 3 plants, it's then going to take up this amount of space. So you're talking about a Hylotelephium that is, say, 30 centimetres round. You split it into 3 pieces, and then you put 1 piece at the front and 2 pieces behind, so that you're doing it in a triangle formation. And they will grow and they will take up nearer 60 centimetres. So they've doubled the amount of space. So this is what I'm saying about splitting what you've already got. And even from the sunny area, try, those plants are doing very well, lift them, split them, and move just a fraction further where they still get light, and you will be amazed at how much you get. And by having repeats down the border, it will look a lot better, and utilise the material you've got to start off with is always good. Then, as I say, you know, go for the hardy geraniums. Then a little bit of thought about bulbs, because if you want a little bit more interest at the end of the season, or you know, you've got lovely shrubs in there, so you've got evergreen, you've got a reasonable amount of interest. But good things to think about getting and putting in would be hardy cyclamen. So cyclamen hederifolium for autumn flowering, and then beautiful foliage. I did spot one, I think, in there, but more, get some more. They're really good because they don't need deep soil, so they'll go where you've got really shallow areas. So think about those. Cyclamen coum, which have got the lovely round leaf. They can either come in plain green or they've got silver markings on them. You can get them with pink or white flowers. They are really great as well because they are early spring flowering. And then the other thing to think about is get yourself a load of snowdrops. Get yourself Galanthus nivalis flora plena. So that's your straightforward single snowdrop and the double flowered form. They don't need a lot. You can put them in, they're quite happy in clay soil. Once they start multiplying and moving around, again, you will be able to lift them, take them bunches at a time and move them around the border so that you've got that spring look and going through. So those are the things that I really think you need to be focusing on, is that type of thing. Now, when I am explaining about utilising, let's see if I can find a piece of paper that I can draw on. We've got something here. Now then, we'll start. Your border basically has your front edge like that, your back edge like here. You've got the odd big shrub in places like so. And the trees are here, creating the shade and the dryness, and then it is sunny at that end. I can't write sun upside down. There we go. And then we've got shade that way. What I'm talking about is you've got Crocosmia here. Lift it, split it, put it here. You've got Hylotelephium down here. Put an H there. Lift it, split it, and it will then take up that space. That's how you want to be doing it. Okay, so just look at this close up. So this is basically the long border, and there are shrubs. Now, there are probably more than that, but this is just to show that they're in different places. Trees at the back here, and they are creating root coming through here. And shady end that end, sunny end that end. So the Crocosmia were somewhere down here in a clump. So they were lifted and then split and put and laid out like this. You have one bit there and one bit there and one bit there. If you can make 5, then you could increase it and make it like that. Absolutely no problem at all. Hylotelephium in a clump there, lift it and again split and put 2 at the front and 1 at the back. Or if you don't want it in that sort of position, you can put 1 at the front and 2 at the back like that. It doesn't really matter, whichever happens. You can see you've gone from a clump that size to a clump that size. This is what happens when you do your splitting. And then over here there were a lot of very tall Lysimach, and you had your horrible laurel that you didn't like there. Now this clump here can definitely be lifted and split, and they're quite tall, so you could actually move them to, say, this position if there's room for them here, or a little bit further back here, but definitely not all of them there. Lift and divide them, put back in position there, and I would have 1 at the front and 2 behind, like so. Then whatever you've got left, bring down here. Don't plant at the front, come back a bit and put them in position like this, and you'll see soon, you start to see that you are filling up bits and pieces. The pulmonaria, for instance, was probably here, and if you lifted that could come down here, it could come down here. So utilizing what you've got already will fill it up really quite quickly. And then, you know, things like the cyclamen can come in here, or maybe up here and that sort of thing. And then snowdrops, they don't have to be at the front of the border, because when they're out, there's nothing else out in flower. So you could have a patch of snowdrops through here and a patch of snowdrops through there, and maybe even just underneath the shrub in the front there. You just need to have them in a place here, a place there, a place there, a place there, and maybe at the end there. So as you walk along, there's suddenly something to see. And that's the way that you need to be looking at it and thinking about the border. So sometimes with these borders, it's just having another pair of eyes to have a look at it. And basically all I've actually done is a little bit of editing. So it's a matter of taking what is there and moving it around. So you are editing the border by changing how the feel of it is with the material that is already there, and then starting simply and just doing repeats here, here and here. And that is what you need to do. So slow, simple steps. Once you get to that point and you think, gosh, yes, this is now working, you will feel so much better. Please don't try and do the whole border all at once. Just do remedial steps. Once you get a success and you find a plant material that works, go and find another lot of that type of plant material which looks different, which is slightly different. So like for your euphorbias, for instance, you've put euphorbia somewhere in the slightly semi-shade. There are euphorbias for the sunnier bit. So you could go for Euphorbia mercenites or Segueriana. That will then help you. You will get confidence, you will feel happier with it. And yes, you can start looking at other shrubs, but because of your acidity, make sure you are looking for shrubs that like to go in acid soil. So that is one thing that I would say as well. I hope this has been of interest for everybody. I hope this has helped you, Debbie, as well. Thank you all for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.